Hi, I'm Dr. George Yancey. Let's share some paradigms. The paradigm I'll share today is Christians refusing forgiveness. I consider forgiveness to be a central core of who we are as Christians. We ask for forgiveness. We recognize that we need forgiveness. We recognize our human depravity. Forgiveness is the natural consequence for a person who recognizes their human depravity. They know they've done wrong, and they know they will continue to do wrong, and they want to turn it around. So there's repentance and asking for forgiveness. To be a Christian, in my opinion, is to have asked for forgiveness, that you really are not in that relationship. Now, I'm talking as a Christian now, not as a sociologist. But as a Christian, if you've really never asked for forgiveness, then you're not one of his. That's how deeply I feel about this, because it really is a core. Who are we as humans? Are we perfectible, or are we depraved? Are we fallible? It's not an accident then that we have a high bar as far as to not being willing to forgive other people. In fact, we should forgive the best we can. Even in horrible abuse situations, we're working towards forgiveness. Now, I'm not going to go all into this because it's more complicated, obviously. But even if someone has horribly abused you, if you refuse to forgive, you're punishing yourself. There's research that shows you're punishing yourself from that refusal to forgive, holding in that anger, the depression it creates. Forgiveness is one of those things, and I did a video on forgiveness in my Sociology of Scripture series. Here's one of those things that shows that the insight, the wisdom of the Bible is true when we use science to look at it. So we're to forgive others. We're to work towards forgiving others. I know it's hard when they've personally sinned against us. It should be easier when they commit a sin that's not against us and they have asked for forgiveness to forgive. But unfortunately, I'm finding out that that's not the case. One of the weaknesses of what's been called cancel culture, when we try to cancel people out, and for years, the left has really engaged in a cancel culture. Unfortunately, the right is now trying to catch up with them, where if you did something wrong, if you said the wrong set word, if you made the bad statement, if you commit a sin, if you harm someone to some degree, I'm not talking about murder or anything like that, but I'm talking about harming people, you would be canceled. And by canceling, people will try to get you fired, people will try to harass you, you would be stigmatized. Even if you ask for forgiveness. Now, I understand people are thinking, well, you're just asking for cheap forgiveness, and some people probably were. But not everyone. Sometimes we say something horrible, and then it's pointed out, we realize, wow, that's not me. How can I say that? Even people who ask for forgiveness and try to make amends often remain canceled. We can argue that's a consequence of their actions. That's fine. What's it doing to people who refuse to forgive? That's one of the horrors of cancel culture. And it makes sense if you are looking at humans as perfectible. If you take the Enlightenment mentality that humans are perfectible, that if we create the right culture, we create the right incentives, the right sanctions, we can create a utopia, which is at the basis of Enlightenment thinking, and I believe the basis of a lot of progressive Enlightenment thought today, humanist thought today. If you take that, then why not be hesitant to forgive? Why not punish people who violate the values that we need in our utopia? They violate those values, punish them so that others will not violate those values. You see, the lack of forgiveness does not fit in Christianity. It does fit with a secular ideology that says we should punish, use sanctions to get the actions we need to get to create the society we need to create. And by all measures, to this date that I've seen, religious people are more likely to forgive. And that's a good thing. But is that changing? Before I go into that, let me invite you to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, leave a critique. I just hope to sort of engagement and hope to build this channel to discuss issues such as this, such as forgiveness, and Christians who are now hesitant to forgive. There is a certain type of Christian who's become less willing to forgive, I've noted. A conservative Christian. And it's those who are engaged in identity politics. And in this, they're mimicking what progressive identity politics has done. When someone does something wrong, you pounce on them, you become unwilling to forgive them, you use them as an example so that other people will not step out of line. A classic example happened with J.D. Greear. Now, a disclaimer. I know J.D. Greear. I like J.D. Greear. I consider him a friend. So take that for what it's worth, okay? J.D. Greear made a statement. He made a statement about how Christians don't want to focus on pride and greed, and how they focus on homosexuality instead. And he made a statement on how God whispers at homosexuality, and God is more animated with his pride and greed. Now, I'll be honest, I think that's a really good message. I think it's a good message because we Christians tend to focus on sins that we're not tempted by. Most Christians are not tempted by homosexuality. So, of course, it's easy to rage on that. Most of us, though, struggle with pride and greed, if we're honest. A lot harder to rage at that. Some people took offense that God whispers at homosexuality. They argue that he was saying homosexuality is not a sin. I think in the context of the speech, it's clear he's not saying that. I probably, I didn't have a problem with it. Maybe I wouldn't have felt it was wrong, and maybe I wouldn't have apologized, but he did. He apologized for using that sort of terminology. That should have been the end of it. This was not an abuse of sin. He was not abusing someone. So this is not against people. It's a statement. He apologized. People who were offended could take that apology and say, see, he's changed. He said this is not exactly the right way to say it. But that's not what happened. Many of those same people who complained before kept complaining. They exhibited a lack of forgiveness. They attempted to engage in the same cancel culture that a few years ago they had been denouncing. Why were they doing this? Because they, like the progressives before them, were engaging in identity politics. And in engaging in identity politics, they too, instead of acting as Christians, were going to human depravity and engaging in the practice of forgiveness, they acted like the humanists who wanted to shape a utopian society and feel the need to sanction anyone who's not going to help them get that society. Use that punishment as an example what not to do. Yes, I'm calling it, they're acting as unbelievers. When Christians are unwilling to forgive, they're violating a core of the Christian faith. This is not a peripheral issue. I mean, people want to argue about whether women should be pastors or not. I'm sorry, that is not an issue of salvation. Forgiveness is close to an issue of salvation. I'm not going to say if you don't forgive, you're not saved. I'm going to say if you don't comprehend the notion of forgiveness, what it really means, maybe you're not saved. Maybe you don't understand what it means to be a Christian. This is a core issue. A core issue, if there ever was one. And Christians want to argue about whether or not a woman should be pastor, which at best is a secondary issue. You may disagree with me on that. But I don't see how that's a more important issue than forgiveness. Many conservative Christians are unwilling to forgive because they want to punish their enemies, just like the progressives have done. In refusing an apology, you're saying you don't believe in forgiveness. Now, you can say, well, maybe I want to shape the apology a little bit different or something like that. But the general apology, people came after him just as hard as they did before, showing that they're engaging in this identity politics rather than Christianity. Unfortunately, Christian identity politics has come to resemble progressive identity politics in many ways. That progressive identity politics was unsavory. So too we find that with Christian identity politics. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it insightful. And if you do, please come back. We can share some more paradigms.